Don't forget to sign in for your attendance. Okay, so today we will continue our writing lesson. Go to page 149 in your book, in your literature book. Okay, let's go to select content details. I know we've went over this, but we need to go over it more so you can understand it. Read the story a second or third time. In a reading log, list stylistic elements such as word choice, imagery, and tone. Write your thoughts about each item in the list. You can see in the chart, and you will have to make a chart like this. Story details. In the story, she wrote, she said, so clean and wavy about her yard. Your thoughts, it's a bare dirt yard, but she makes it sound wonderful. The second one, she never takes a shot without making sure the house is included. Your thoughts, this is Dee's own family, but she's acting like a tourist, which is very insensitive of her. Then I've got several messages from students that are confused about the controlling idea. Review your reading log and identify the central idea behind the details you have listed and your own thoughts about it. Write a working controlling idea or thesis statement that explains the central idea. Then select key points from the story that prove your stance. In this particular story, Everyday Use, the controlling idea is the author is saying that understanding and remembering your heritage is important. The key points was the family home, Dee's name, and quilts. That was the three key points during this story, okay? Does everyone understand the controlling idea?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
All right, let's go to page 150. Collect evidence. Develop the controlling ideas with well-chosen, relevant details that are related in the story. As evidence that directly supports your points, include a variety of each of the following. First, examples, specific instances from the story. Quotations, words, phrases, and sentences copied word for word from the story. And summaries, important information from the story summed up in your own words. Elaborate on or explain how each piece of evidence supports your controlling idea and affects the reader. For example, in the chart, what does it look like? All right, one of the key points in the story was Dee's name. The evidence, and this is a summary that like you should put in your own words. Dee takes African name, and then they wrote a quotation. You know as well as me, you was named after your Aunt Dicey. Stylistic device, Dee Wangaro, because that's the name that she changed her original name to. Now, you need to elaborate on this. In rejecting her given name, which she shares with other family members, Dee shows she doesn't really understand the meaning of heritage. Because let's face it, your name has a lot to do with your heritage. You may be named after your, of course, father here, your grandfather, In America, you could be named after your mother or your grandmother. Of course, you would keep your father's last name. Okay. Are there any questions on this part?
No.
Okay. Again, you must write all of this down, your charts and everything, in your writing notebook. All right, page 151, drafting. The following chart shows you how to organize your draft to create a coherent literary analysis. First, of course, is the introduction. Engage your audience by relating to their experiences. Identify the story's title and author. Include a clear, controlling idea that presents your main idea and notes your key points. The body. Discuss one key point or stylistic element per paragraph. For example, in this story, what did we say the 3 points were? The family home.
Which story?
Everyday use.
And the quilts?
No, the family home. Yes, quilts, I'm sorry.
And the heritage?
And her name.
Oh.
Okay, so that's what your 3 paragraphs should be like. Your first one could be about the family home. The second one about the incident with Dee's name. And the third one about quilts and what the quilts actually mean. Remember, quilts in this story are not just blankets to keep you warm. They meant much more than that. Does everyone understand that part?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to the body on page 151. Discuss one key point or stylistic element per paragraph and cite evidence to back up your analysis. Cite evidence straight from the story. Maintain a formal style by using precise language, avoiding contractions and slang words, and adopting an objective, like a neutral tone. In other words, don't make your writing sound like you're taking Mama's side or Dee's side. Try to stay neutral. And last, use varied transitions, such as at first, also, and another example, in order to connect related ideas. And then your concluding section, you summarize your key points and their significance or their importance to your topic. End with a question or statement for your audience to think about. You might end with a question about heritage. Okay. Grammar and context, quotations. You can use quotations from the short story as your evidence, but you must remember you have to use quotation marks to include a direct quotation. The first one is type of structure. A directly quoted sentence begins with a capital letter. If the quotation is only a fragment of a sentence, it may begin with a lowercase letter. Example, the irony is obvious in Dee's statement that she'd probably be backward enough to put them to everyday use. All right, the next one, use a colon after an independent clause, complete sentence that introduces a quotation. The author reveals characters' emotions through key descriptions, and they put a colon there, then they begin the quotation. A direct quotation that includes character dialogue requires both single quotes and quotation marks. The character's words go inside the single quotes. For example, the quilts are priceless, she exclaimed. And lastly, a direct quotation can be set off from the rest of the sentence by a comma, a question mark, or an exclamation point, but not by a period. Example, you know as well as me, you was named after your Aunt Dicey, Dee's mother replies. Any questions on this part? Remember, the purpose of the introduction is to capture the reader's interest, as well as to introduce your controlling idea or your thesis for your essay. The body, first of all, I want you to remember that quotations are only one type of evidence. Analytical essays should also include examples and summaries from the story as your evidence. The concluding section summarizes the key points in the essay and includes a final thought-provoking question or statement. A focused and coherent concluding section will help the audience find new meaning or significance in the story. All right? If you don't have any questions, let's go to page 152. This is revising. When you revise, consider the content, the organization, and style of your essay. The questions, tips, and strategies in the following chart can help you improve your draft. Ask yourself, number one, does the introduction grab the audience's interest? Does it include the name of the author and the title of the story? Number two, does the introduction present a clear and engaging controlling idea? Does the introduction summarize key points? Number three, does the body include a paragraph for each key point? Is the order of key points effective? And number four, in each key point supported by evidence such as concrete examples and relevant quotations. You should ask yourself that question. Number five, do I maintain a formal style and objective tone throughout? And number six, does the concluding section summarize key points and reflect on their overall meaning? Does it include a question or a statement for the audience to think about? Let's go back up to number one for tips. Put a star by sentences that you think get the audience interested. Put a check mark by the name of the author and the title of the story to make sure that you have it included. Add an interesting opening sentence. Add the name of the author and the title of the story. Number two, does the introduction present a clear and engaging controlling idea? And does the introduction summarize key points? Bracket the controlling idea. Label each key point to be discussed in the body of the essay with P1, P2, and so on. And your revision strategies, if your controlling idea seems boring or obvious, rewrite it to make it more engaging. Summarize key points in the introduction. Number three, label each paragraph with the key point that it discusses. Then number your key points in order of importance. Your revision strategies, add a paragraph for each key point. Rearrange the key points by putting the most important point last. Number four, circle each piece of the evidence for a key point. Draw an arrow from each item to the point it supports. Your revision strategies on this: add evidence to support your key points. Rearrange evidence so that it is in the paragraph containing the point it supports. Number five, put a bracket around contractions that you may have used. Casual language or vague word choices. In other words, weak word choices. Your strategy in revising this should be reword text to avoid contractions. Replace instances of informal language with precise formal words. And number 6, a tip. Underline the summary of key points and their meaning. Highlight the question or statement for your audience to think about. Revising strategy. Add a summary of your key points and their meaning. Add a question or statement for your audience to ponder or to think about. I know as I read, this seems like you are overwhelmed. As a student writing an essay, I can explain everything in general, but you must go back and take one step at a time. Don't try to work on 2 or 3. It's not going to work for you. You must take one step at a time. All right, page 153. Again, this is the essay that the student wrote on everyday use. Now, let's go back to talking about controlling idea. In her introduction, Lydia focuses on the controlling idea of her essay and the key points that will support her analysis. Let's read it. At first, Alice Walker's story, Everyday Use, seems to be about minor conflicts. However, Walker uses mother-daughter conflicts to describe her beliefs about how people should honor their heritage. The conflicts Alice Walker discusses over a family's home, a daughter's name, and some heirloom quilts make the reader think about the larger question of heritage. Can you see how this is the controlling idea and it includes the key points? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, I got it.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes.
Okay. The second paragraph. Here, Lydia covers a key point in each body paragraph. She provides concrete examples from the story as supporting evidence for this key point. Let's read number 2, paragraph number 2. The conflict over the family's home is clear from the beginning of the story. The mother loves the family home. When the family's previous home burned down years before, her daughter Dee showed no emotion. And she goes on to add other things, but the main point here I want you to know is that she covers a key point in each body paragraph, and she provides concrete examples from the story. Okay, any questions on this part? Okay, paragraph 3. Here, Lydia summarizes the story and offers quotations as evidence of this conflict. To strengthen or make her analysis stronger, she could discuss a stylistic element. Number 3, third paragraph. Dee and her mother also disagree about names. Dee tells her family that she has given herself an African name, Wangiro Liwanika Kimenjo. She tells her mother that Dee is dead, saying, I couldn't bear it any longer, being named after the people who oppress me. Dee's mother replies, you know as well as me, you was named after your Aunt Dicey. But her daughter rejects the name, preferring to forget all the Dees who came before her. The author highlights this conflict by referring to Dee by both names, Dee Wangiro, okay? So you can see right now, each of her body paragraphs. You don't have to write a novel for each paragraph, as long as each paragraph has the important key points that it should have. Everyone understands? All right, let's move on. Page 154.
Miss,
Yes.
what is a stylistic element?
What is a stylistic element? Who can tell me? Before we read that you were to only cite stylistic elements that support your key points and help convey the meaning and message of your essay. What is a
I was
stylistic?
gonna say.
Go ahead, answer.
Okay. Stylistic elements are techniques that are used to make the meaning more obvious and stronger and clearer.
Exactly, Ziad. Such as your word choice, Layla, the imagery that you include, even the tone of your voice when you're writing. You understand?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, page 154. Number 4, paragraph 4. The last and most important confrontation between Dee and her mother comes when Dee asks for 2 quilts. Dee wants to hang the quilts in her home. Her mother had offered her a quilt when she went away to school, but Dee had rejected it as old-fashioned, out of style. Now she tells her mother they are priceless. I can't believe students are just showing up. When the mother tells Dee that she promised the quilts to the younger daughter as a wedding gift, Dee reacts furiously. Maggie can't appreciate these quilts. She'd probably be backward enough to put them to everyday use. Dee can't see that everyday use is exactly why the quilts were made. Okay, so here, Lydia makes her most important key point in the final paragraph before the concluding section. She supports it with a summary of information from the story in quotations. Everyone understand this part?
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, the conclusion. And as you can see, the conclusion is not very long at all, but you'll see it's very strong. As Dee storms out of the house, she tells her mother, "You just don't understand your heritage." The fact is, the mother and Maggie understand their heritage in ways Dee never will. So you can see how it's only 3 sentences. Here, although Lydia makes a general statement about the meaning of the story, her concluding section is weak. She could have put more here. She could have had a stronger conclusion, okay? Remember, your conclusion is supposed to tie in with your introduction. So if you go back and read her introduction, you can see that she could have very well written a stronger conclusion here, all right? But I do want you to see, for example, in her conclusion, this writer does tell about how Dee storms out of the house, and she quotes her. She says, "You just don't understand your heritage." And then she writes her feelings. The fact is, the mother and Maggie understand their heritage in ways Dee never will. Does everyone understand the conclusion part?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on this page? All right, let's go to the paragraph before. Can you see it in the little box, Lydia's revision to paragraph?
Yes.
After she was told that her conclusion was too weak, then she rewrote the conclusion. The fact is, the mother and Maggie understand their heritage in ways Dee never will. She added this: to the mother, heritage lies in the work of her ancestors in the humble house that shelters her, in the memories of Grandma Dee, Stash, and Dicey, and in the lovingly pieced quilts that will keep Maggie and her husband warm. The author uses a series of conflicts between the mother and Dee to show that a family's heritage is not something priceless to be hung on a wall as a piece of art. Instead, it should be part of people's daily lives for everyday use. You see how much better that is? and it ties in with her introduction. She mentioned the same things in her introduction, but she used different wording. Any questions? None?
No.
Okay. I don't know how, let's see how much time we have left. We have a little bit of time. All right, let's go to page 155, editing and publishing. In the editing stage, you must proofread your essay to make sure that it is free of grammar, usage, and spelling and punctuation errors. Such errors can distract your audience from your ideas about the meaning of the short story. Reciprocal pronouns are a type of indefinite pronoun that refers to something or someone that may or may not be specifically named. Writers use these types of pronouns, each other, one another, to convey a shared action or feeling among the members of a plural subject. And you can look up many more of these pronouns. Dee and her mother also disagree about names. In the sentence with each other could be added after disagree. The reciprocal pronoun each other would show a shared feeling between the subjects of Dee and her mother. While editing her essay, Lydia noticed an opportunity to use a reciprocal pronoun. Dee can't see that everyday use is exactly why the quilts were made. This conflict with one another highlights the differences among Dee, her sister, and her mother. The conflict is shared by Dee, her sister, and her mother. Okay? And then it tells how to publish your writing. Finally, you will share your literary analysis with an audience. Here are some options. Number one, we will not submit it to a school literary magazine because we don't have one. Publish your essay on a website for the fans of the author's work. Adapt your essay into an oral presentation and deliver it to an audience that has read the story. Again, after you submit your essay to me, I gave you the option of getting some extra points if you would like to present your essay on a PowerPoint. There were many students that are very, very late today for the session. I'm not going to reteach all of this. Some of you are just now coming here. Some of you have been here 10 minutes. I will not count you here today. You will be counted as absence. You cannot enter 10 minutes, even 15 minutes before the session ends and expect to get attendance. It's not going to happen. Let's talk about this quiz. I said I was not going to discuss it anymore. And all I'm going to say is this. Go to SMS. All the information is there except online students. You will need paper and pen to take the quiz. Yaya, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, you were one of 4 students. I cannot remember the other 3, but I will call them out the next session. You didn't even bother to sign up to take the quiz. I sent you the code and everything. You didn't even look at it.
No, miss, I have done it, but late yesterday.
Late yesterday, it's been there for almost a week. Because of you and 3 other students, the
Yes,
entire
but I have
quiz
done it
had.
only late yesterday.
I'm
I have
talking.
done it.
I'm talking. Because of you and 3 other students, I had to change the date of the quiz. Now you have a much more intense quiz. Before you had multiple choice. Now you do not. You had 30 questions to answer. I had 37 messages from students asking me, Miss, I can't get on the website. It won't take the code. Out of 37 messages, there was not one problem with one code. It was because you did not have sense enough to write down your password to remember it. This will never happen again. Online students will have the same quizzes as in-class students. You will have 30 minutes to answer 30 grammar questions. You will have 1 minute, 60 seconds to take a picture and get it to my email. If you don't, you will get a 0, and I will not change my mind. That's
Miss,
all I'm going
can
to.
you explain again the other
Everything's
minutes?
in
What
SMS.
should I do with it?
Everything's in SMS about the quiz, the time and everything. All you have to do, don't be late for that session because I will not let you take the quiz. Thomas, Sarah, Farah, if you're late, I won't allow you to take the quiz. You better be in that session when it starts. Your camera don't work, that's not my problem. I'm sure you read that big post that I wrote. Your problem is not my problem. Stop making excuses. Just because you're online does not mean you're on vacation. Any questions?
I was just asking, I sent you the essay, the literary analysis yesterday. Did it reach you or not?
I didn't check because I was too busy trying to answer 37 messages.
Okay.
I'm like the rest of you. When I leave school, my day should be over. Unless I have lesson plans like you have homework or something to that effect. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning with this stupidity about quizzes. It's ridiculous. You're in high school. You're not in middle school. You're not in elementary school. You are in high school, grade 10. When I tell you to go to a website and register, and I take the time to send you a code, that's what I expect you to do. And if you can't, your memory is not good enough to remember your passwords or your username, which some of them couldn't even remember, then that's not my problem. You'll take 0s in the quiz. It's your grades, not mine. I have been asked the most ridiculous questions last night. After I reposted everything, I still have students. So Miss, we're gonna have the quiz today or Sunday? That's just unbelievable to me. Any other questions? Okay, that ends our session. We have another one right after this one.
Okay.
What questions do you have, anyone?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, Ziad.